In chapter 3, we're going to look at one of the most consistent charges against the Bible, and that is the issue of contradictions. How can we trust the Bible if it contradicts science and if it contradicts itself? Now, if you ever hear someone say that to you, there's one and only one question you need to ask, and it has to be the first question you ask, and that is, can you show me one? Now, say it nicely, but ask them to actually give you a text that contradicts another text. If they have a real issue, if this really is a problem for them, they'll be able to show you those passages. My experience, though, is that the vast majority of people don't really have an issue with contradictions. They don't even know where the problem passages are. But instead, it's a smokescreen because they don't want to believe the Bible. So you need to find out how sincere that question is. Now, if you find out that it is a sincere question and they do have real issues, then you need to sit down with them, perhaps your commentary, read this chapter, and find out why these passages don't contradict each other. Sometimes it's just a simple matter of interpretation. One of the historic examples is Paul says that justification, being made right with God, is an issue of faith. James looks like he's saying justification is by works, by doing things. Well, that's a misunderstanding of the passages, and once you explain the correct interpretation, there's no contradiction. So we'll start with the correct interpretation. Along with having the right interpretation, if you're in the Gospels, there's this whole thing called harmonization. And harmonization simply asks the question, is there a way to conceive of an historical situation in which two different Gospel writers, while they appear to have differences, are actually accurately reporting the same event? And the key to all this is to know how the Gospels were actually written. If you look at the first 4 verses of Luke, if you look at the end of John, you'll see a couple of themes. One, I can't tell you everything. Jesus did so many things, the world couldn't hold all the books that would be written. But you'll also find out that the Gospel writers have purposes. They have goals they're striving for. John wants to evangelize people. Luke wants, among other things, that the non-Jews to know that they have a place in God's kingdom. So they have these different purposes, different goals, and that's controlling their selection of material, at least to some extent. And as you understand that, and as you ask the question of harmonization, all of a sudden these apparent contradictions go away. For example, let's look at the 2 thieves on the cross. The Gospels say that Jesus was hung between 2 thieves on the cross. In Luke, it says that one of them repented. Now, is that a contradiction? No, I don't think so. Can you conceive of a situation and both those could be true? Sure. What do you think Jesus did when he was on the cross? Do you think after 3.5 years he said nothing? Well, I'm sure he was talking to them. One of them repented. So some Gospel writers just wanted to talk about the thieves, but for some reason Luke thought it was important to include the story of the repentant thief, or actually insurrectionist. That's what harmonization is. How many angels were at the tomb? Well, some of the Gospels says an angel came, and this is the one that was talking. In John, he specifically says there were 2. Is that a contradiction? No. Now, if these Gospels had said there was one and only one, and John said there were 2, that's a contradiction. But they were simply talking about what they wanted to talk about, that there was an angel who spoke. John wants to make it clear that there were 2. Okay, that's all that harmonization is. It's asking the questions. Have we interpreted the passages properly? And is there a way to conceive of an historical situation in which both can be true? I think what you'll find is that you can always come to a believable scenario and remove all those apparent contradictions.